Is on our trade blast for the 24th of April, 2020. We also focus today on a first time ever, we're doing a review of the Bose earphones or earpieces. Thanks for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. We're joined by Model 3 Driving Reel today. We'll have a slower version for you on our next show. So I also wanted to thank our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. Usually on Fridays, we don't do trade blasts with the general public. It's usually reserved for our at least 125 level Patreon supporters. We're doing it today because Patreon is still lagging on us to get restarted. And so this will be the last sort of Friday trade blast that we'll do in this manner. We'll ask you, if you're a Patreon member, to send us your email to make sure we can email you the trade blasts rather than you're not getting them, as might have been the case yesterday. So I wanted to thank you, and the topic that I chose today is related to car purchases. And the question is, are Tesla sales being slowed by its leasing policies? So I'm going through the process right now of purchasing a car, and I really wanted to purchase a Tesla now versus wait till next year for the Model Y. What's actually going on is that my first goal was to just look at a bottom-end Model 3. Performance, though, I've seen many people actually return the bottom-end Model 3 and pay the extra 20 grand to get into the low end of the performance because it was so significantly different. So I've been going back and forth between which vehicle to get or try to get. The Model Y, both performance and long range at $60,000 and $67,000 after fees is a little bit too much. I spoke to my accountant, Sam, and he informed me that renting while buying an expensive car is very bad fundamental investment strategy. So I've therefore am in the mode where definitely interested in a car, want to purchase a Tesla. So the options to reduce costs included leasing. So if you investigate the leasing prices that Tesla is doing, the payment is actually about 90% of what you would pay if you're actually buying the car. So this is why I chose the title of Is the Leasing Policy Slowing Down Tesla's Sales? And so the answer to it is that, in general, what you're supposed to do with leases is that the payments made represent about a quarter of the value of the vehicle, and then residual value, depending on how high that is, allows the automaker to, in essence, sell the vehicle to a third party later or release it again to pay off more of the cost. And so I believe that Tesla's numbers here really impact the ability of buyers to be motivated to purchase Teslas. And what we've found is, from our show, is we've done a lot of shows, and we've actually had the company respond to things that we've discussed in terms of what they choose to do or policy shifts to embrace our logic. Even though we're not the biggest show, we actually do have impact, and we're hopeful that it'll be the case relative to the leasing policy of the company. So another aspect of what I think is really negatively affecting Tesla's sales out of the sales and leasing process is, if you go on the website, you'll find that there's a large number of vehicles that are available to be purchased or leased, etc. There's a large pool of Model S's, so our older vehicles, some as old as 5 or 6 years old, perhaps came off lease or something to that effect. And I was kind of stunned because as I looked at the numbers, it turns out that the pricing of those, or the perhaps list pricing of those older Tesla vehicles, is the equivalent of what it costs for a brand new Model 3. So I I was kind of surprised by this as well, where I think you could end up with a large amount of inventory just sitting because the prices don't reflect any kind of reality. So the question that comes up then is, should I A, buy a used Model S with 5 to 7 year old technology, or B, buy a new Model 3 with which is granted a smaller vehicle. It doesn't have unlimited supercharging, but it's a completely different driving experience. And I'm so I think for me the process is confusing, and the answer I've come up with is, how about a used X3 for 10 grand, cash out the door, and not even bother with all these questions? I'm 6'3", so I like the idea of getting into a bigger vehicle. It gives me more space to stretch out in. I like the fact that when you put groceries and store stuff in the back of the vehicle, you can just reach, at reach height. You don't have to reach down into the trunk and do all these other things. So I can see why SUVs represent 59% of the marketplace, because yes, it's nice to have fewer vehicles, but a big issue though is, hey, how easy is it for me to deal with the vehicle relative to grocery store trips each week, a quick run to Home Depot or IKEA, and all these other questions. And I just think that an SUV platform does that well, and I can see why the Model Y is going to be big. So I think at this point I'm at the wait for the Model Y lowest version, or for next year, or maybe get something cheap from somebody else, drive that for a year, and then I can sort of wait until all the people turning in their Model Ys to get the Cybertruck can sell me theirs at a great deal. So I look forward to any and all comments on this process, but I really think that Tesla needs to sort of modify, update what they're doing with leasing prices, what they're doing with the Model S. I also should share that the buying process is a little bit more challenging in terms of reviewing options right now, because prior to purchasing or prior to seeing the first Model 3, I actually did a show that suggested it was a better deal to buy a used Model S rather than buy the Model 3 for a number of reasons in terms of features the vehicle had in it. But after spending time in the Model 3, I'd have to say that you're giving up space and some accoutrements that go with the Model S, but what you gain in terms of it's a lot more like a very tight sports car, can fit into smaller spaces easier. I think it's a better city car than is the Model S for these reasons. And it definitely is not as fast at the top end of what they're doing. But I'd have to say that the speed you get, let's say in the performance and the adrenaline, et cetera, I don't think there'll be much of a sense of loss unless you hit the track a lot and you're getting blown away by Ravens and other Model S's in the process. So in general, I would have to say that I look forward to Elon sort of updating both leasing policy as well as pricing policies on new versus used cars, because it seems as though what they're really saying is we don't want to sell any of these based on how they're priced. And the fact that inventory is building up, I think, should make a suggestion that some changes are in order. So we'll update you if and when we see some changes that are going on there. The second thing that we wanted to review today is our trade blast for today, which is Friday the 24th. Today's options expiration day. So as I was headed to do my trade blast, something strange popped up, which is prior to reading the data, mentally I was thinking, okay, Tesla stock price is just over 100. So what the market makers are going to do today is kind of pin the stock just below 100, so all of those calls expire. To my surprise, I went and looked at the numbers, and it turns out that Tesla's stock price is current, or the options is what we use to guide what's going to happen with the stock price, particularly on expiration day today, Friday. What I mean by this in this case is if you type into your computer Yahoo Finance and then Tesla and then options, I want you to look at the options chain, And what you'll notice there is that there are 18,000 uh, put options on Tesla that expire today. When you scroll down further and look at the number of calls, there are 5,800. So I was very surprised by this. I didn't expect it. So I have to say that my assessment of where we're going with the stock price today is I expect that the stock of Tesla will actually rise today. And to make sure the market makers don't get in trouble, I think the stock's going to rise into the 720s. And the reason is that they don't want to get real close because all those puts will make a ton of money if they're allowed to expire with Tesla below $700 a share. So will this happen? I think there's a 90% chance it will. And I think it fits with other narratives like, anticipating good earnings next week and how that's going to hit the stock, et cetera, et cetera. But the most important thing from a trading standpoint in the short term is that there are a lot of market makers that can't afford to have Tesla end up below 700 today because it will cost them millions, if not billions of dollars. And so stay tuned. We look forward to see if the predictor we've developed on the pinning process over time comes true. The next question is, well, what do you do with that? And I think the answer is the stock, from what I could see pre-market. So therefore, what my thought or recommendation is that if you're able to grab some stock up just above 700, go for it. And do not be surprised to see it in the 715, 720 zone, maybe even higher, because the market makers are eager to make sure it does not go below 700. So I look forward to you guys sending me flaming emails or non-flaming emails relative to this data. But when you have a ratio of 3 to 1, wow, that's huge. I just think that there's no way this sucker ends up below 700 today. But this will be fun to see what happens, and I'll look forward to your comments on this. The next thing we wanted to review is the fact that we're in countdown mode right now. It's Friday. Tesla's earnings come out next Wednesday. The question is, what's going to happen? The answer is that, so it's our belief that Tesla has done well. They're going to meet the number of hours you get pushed up as a stock price. But we're also in the belief that we're in a situation right now where there's a good chance that the markets, may fight back against Tesla stock price being up. So we'll see how this plays out as we head in. We do know for sure that the delta is increasing the closer we get to earnings if you're in the option space. And if you are a holder of the shares, please make sure you do some kind of hedging with puts or put spread or something, because as we know during this period after earnings, in a day or two, Tesla could be 100 or 200 points higher or 100 or 200 points lower. So being anticipatory and prepared is a good idea. The other stock that we're encouraging you to take a peek at is Abbott. I have some of their calls heading into next week, as do many of my friends, many of whom have sold out in our trade group. The fundamentals for Abbott, I still think look terrific for an investment standpoint, but not necessarily a trading standpoint. It looked good at 97 yesterday and rising, and then all of a sudden things just fell apart quickly. So we're hopeful to see some nice movement today, and therefore some nice profitability from the stock sort of returning, because they're a great company, good products. There are some hiccups relative to the testing stuff, but I think they're in great shape to do well. The last thing that we wanted to run through today is I haven't been doing many product reviews, but today's review is of, so this is what they look like. They come with 3 different earpieces of different sizes that go in. You can run with them, etc. It's different than just having a dedicated, earpieces, as in the case of Apple. I bought them from Home Depot. The list price is $150, or Costco has them for $124 right now. I think that's a pretty good deal. I've been a Bose fanatic for a long time. I have, over the years, purchased the big Bose white box and enjoyed that music with the CD player. I have purchased probably the noise canceling headphones as well as others. And today I have a really strange review of the new Sound Sport Pulse, which is, they're no longer usable perhaps, but I still have my old Bose from like 6 years ago, and they sound great, even though there's even though the cord, as you can see, is rather charred. And so